Today, I'll show you how to weather a Japanese freight car model. From preparation to final touches, you'll see the complete process. Let's begin. First, I apply Michikuran multi-primer to the entire body. This primer is designed to improve adhesion, making sure the paint layers applied later will not peel off. Without a primer, paint can chip easily, especially on smooth plastic surfaces. After priming, I spray a thin, even coat of matte clear. This matte layer creates a uniform surface, which helps the weathering pigments and paints stick more naturally. For the first weathering layer, I use a combination of yellow and brown paints. These colors form a subtle, warm base that simulates dust, faded paint, and the beginning of rust. I apply them lightly, building up color gradually rather than in one heavy coat. Next, I add a slightly darker tone to the roof to represent dirt and soot that accumulates over years of operation. Paying attention to the roof is important because it is often the most exposed part of the freight car to weather and pollutants. For the rust base, I use water-based colored pencils. Water-based pencils are much easier to blend, allowing for soft edges and subtle gradients. I draw fine streaks and patches where rust would naturally form, such as near panel lines, bolt heads, and edges. Then I lightly blend the lines with a damp brush to integrate them into the surface. This step lays the groundwork for more complex rust tones later. I add dark streaks and smudges around the pantograph area. These marks replicate the dirt, carbon residue, and grease thrown up from the pantograph in real operation. On actual freight cars, these stains are a signature sign of heavy use. Adding them helps bring authenticity and character to the model. The bogies are made from ABS plastic, which can be tricky to paint. To prevent the paint from peeling, I first apply a thin coat of Michikuran multi-primer. Then I seal it with a layer of matte clear for extra durability. Once the surface is ready, I use brown paint to add layers of dirt and grime. I concentrate the darker tones in recessed areas where dirt naturally collects for a more realistic effect. I move on to the steps, painting them with a fine-tipped white Posca marker. On real freight cars, even if the body is covered in dirt and grime, the steps are often kept clean for safety reasons. By keeping the steps bright white, you add a subtle but convincing contrast to the overall weathered look. This detail makes the model look more believable and visually interesting.
Next, I add rust effects to the coupler. I start by dabbing fluorescent orange paint onto a sponge, then gently tapping it onto the coupler to create a base rust color. This color is bright, so I adjust the paint amount on the sponge to avoid over-application. Then I soften the orange tone using light brown paint, blending it into the surrounding areas. Finally, I add small touches of dark brown to deepen the rust effect and make it look aged.
For the wheel sides, I use a fine-tipped black Posca marker in matte finish. This is a quick and precise way to darken the wheels without masking or overspray. Once dry, The matte texture naturally resembles the look of real steel wheels that have been exposed to the elements. It also helps reduce the toy-like shine often seen on unpainted model wheels.
With all the parts weathered and painted, it is time to reassemble the freight car. I attach the wheels back to the bogies, then fix the bogies to the body. Once everything is in place, the model immediately gains a more solid and realistic presence. The combination of subtle weathering and detailed accents makes the locomotive look as though it has truly seen years of service.
Here is the comparison, before and after weathering. The difference is striking. The unweathered model looks clean but flat, while the weathered version has depth, texture, and personality. This is from looking like a toy into a miniature piece of history. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more model train tutorials and weathering techniques. Feel free to share your own methods in the comments. I'd love to hear how you approach weathering. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.